Welcome to this special episode. This is one that's come out of the sequence, and the reason being is because this is a real sliding door moment. Anyway, enough corny jokes. I wanted to take this opportunity to make episode 5 a little bit more personal, because this has come at a week where it's going to be difficult for sure. I'm traveling back to the UK. I'm leaving my girlfriend here in the Philippines in Siargao, and it's never nice having to leave your friends for a period of time, although the silver lining is I get to see my family. But the main thing I wanted to talk about, really, because we do want to keep it related to health, fitness, sport, competing, is this week is Deload week. Okay, and I say this because so many of you probably watching this have never even heard of a Deload week, or you have heard of a Deload week, but you never do one. Or maybe, just maybe, some of you plan to do a Deload week, but as soon as you get into the gym, that 30%, 40% intensity quickly turns to 70, 80, and 90%, therefore never really going through the Deload week. How do I know? Because this was me. Until to a point, it still is, and I'm really trying hard to make it that it's not, and I am going to rest and recover this week, because guess what? If I don't, I am not going to show up how I want to show up for the competitions, which I am actually working towards. So how stupid would that be to shoot myself in the foot when really the thing that I'm training for is the thing that I want to be most freshest and recharged and injury free for. So we're going to reflect on the past few months. Okay, so I started working with a one-to-one coach, Nico, head coach at CrossFit Siargao, for my own improvements in CrossFit. I felt I'd reached a level where classes couldn't really take me further than I was, and I needed someone really to work with me on an individual basis, design an individual specified program for me that is going to work on my weaknesses and bring them up to where they should be. I already had a fitness base. I'd even go as far to say, my engine is really strong. In terms of raw strength, again, that's probably a big tick in my box as well. And on the flip side, there's definitely a lot of technical and skill issues I had. Maybe I could do certain movements, but I couldn't do them very efficiently. For example, the bar muscle up. I've been able to do those for maybe 18 months or so, but the way I was doing them prior was very inefficient. So this is almost like a shout out to anyone who has sort of self-taught, self-coached, got themselves to a certain level. You might be a great athlete already, but if you've never worked with a coach, and a good coach at that, then I can pretty much guarantee you're leaving things on the table. You have more potential to achieve. Even though you might be good, you could be great. With someone's expert eye, looking and watching your every move, designing your program specifically, and encouraging you to work on those weaknesses, because I know it's all way too easy to cherry pick the workouts, the exercises, the competitions even that we're good at, and maybe stay away from the things that we're not so good at, the things that humble us. I also bring this podcast, or record this podcast, straight after the week of the CrossFit Games, or the weekend of the CrossFit Games. Now, those athletes are on a completely different hemisphere to me. And if I'm being realistic, it's never going to happen in my world. As much as I'd love it to, one, I think the gap in terms of my skill level, strength, everything is just too great. And two, I've got to face it, I'm not spring chicken anymore. I'm 31 years old. I know I don't look it. I know I probably look younger than most of the field in the CrossFit Games, but the body, as strong as it feels, as fit as it feels, it just isn't as young, as durable, as reboundable as those young, shall we call them, almost godlike athletes, because they are able to put their bodies through a hell of a lot and still compete at the very, very top. However, what I did want to say, because this was a really interesting post from the GOAT, in my opinion, the GOAT, Noah Ohlsen. Never won the CrossFit Games, but was always near the top. Always there or thereabouts. And what a character the guy is. He commented back to me once on an Instagram post, it's my claim to fame. Noah, if you're watching, hi. But he put a really interesting post out because he is now a 36, I want to guess, maybe 35-year-old athlete. He's retired from full-time CrossFit, but he competed and won the Masters CrossFit Games, the 35 to 39-year-old category. And he put a post out almost saying sorry. It didn't quite say sorry, but almost saying sorry for celebrating winning that achievement. Now, the way he did kind of portray it and phrase it was that essentially he felt like he'd worked super hard, and even though it wasn't the CrossFit Games full, which he did allude to that, he did recognize that, it was still a big achievement in his eyes. And too damn right, because even if you are the fittest man, 35 to 39-year-olds or over 35, that's a hell of a lot of people. And someone even commented the fact, and I agree, to stay that fit, that strong, that healthy, after having been a competitor in the full event for so many years, I think in some ways is even more impressive. There's plenty of high-level athletes that as soon as they quit or as soon as they retire, drop off the face of the earth. They give up on their health, they give up on their well-being, and they become unrecognizable within just a few years. And I know a lot of people like that too. Maybe haven't been high-level athletes, but at least they were good athletes in school, in university, in college. And ever since they stopped playing their sport, they've struggled to get back into the groove. And that could be you watching. Noah Ohlsen is a prime example of someone, okay, he didn't give up. He didn't let things lie, but he is still older as an athlete and still competing with the very, very best. It's a great example, and I just wanted to mention that because if I'm to relate myself to that quote, a still very far-fetched but more realistic goal than the CrossFit Games, there could be a world where I at least have a sniff of getting into the age category CrossFit Games. And why the hell not should I aim for that? Because even if I never get there, if that is something that drives me, if that is something that keeps me excited, that keeps me looking forward to my training, to competitions, to push myself, then it's doing more than enough anyway. And if by chance I manage to get the opportunity in the future, whether it's the 35 to 39, the 40 to 45, the 60 plus all categories, because that's how far they go up, I think every single one of those categories is a very, very prestigious achievement. And anyone who's even made the games in those categories should be super proud of themselves. So this is definitely reaching out to anyone who thinks they are too old to compete, they are too old to achieve great things, because you're not. But when I say time's not getting any slower, believe me, because time will catch up on you, and the longer you leave it to take any action, the harder it's ever going to be. So that was my little tangent. Moving back on to this week in my personal life, okay? Because sometimes you want to get to know me a little bit more before I start trying to talk to you about fitness, science, nutrition, blah, blah, blah. So I originally come from the UK, Manchester, or a town called Bolton just outside Manchester. And I decided I wanted to leave the UK on a more permanent basis probably when I was 24, 25, but I didn't take action until I was 29. And even then, even now, I can't quite say I'm definitively moving out of the UK, because I won't put that stamp on it until maybe I've been out there on the majority for 3, 4, 5 years. But that is very much the aim, that is very much the goal. And what I've been doing over the past 12 to 18 months is sort of trying to find a base, because I am not someone who although I like to travel, experience new cities, new countries, new cultures, I always like to have a base where I can make friends, where I can have stability, where I can potentially build a business in the future or businesses, and just become, find somewhere that's I can call home away from home. And that place for me in the past 18 months has been an island called Siargao in the Philippines. A wonderful, wonderful island with a wonderful community, a thriving fitness community, fantastic local people, local cultures, and it's just a super happy place to live. And every time I leave, it's sad. And this time is definitely the hardest because now I've managed to tick one of my big goals off for 2026 in terms of securing a long-term contract with a girl. Jokes aside, Sarah is my girlfriend, and we've been only just 4 months in now, but it's been quite not what's the opposite of concentrated. I was going to say what's the opposite of diluted. Yeah, it's been concentrated because we spent a lot of time together. That's kind of what you find out on this island, because you are very close quarters to everyone. Your groups of friends, your partners, your fitness community, you tend to spend a lot of time with, because things in essence are more convenient, but the way that the lifestyle is set up here is to be social, is to do active things, and then that's why I love it. That's why I would recommend anyone who's not happy where they're currently at, try something new. And yeah, this week I head back to the UK, and my goal for being back in the UK is one, to recover. As I say, I'm on this deload week. I'm carrying no serious injuries, but several niggly limiting injuries. Adductors super tight, which is affecting my overall squat power. My elbows, tennis and golfer's elbow, one on one arm, one on the other, and then my shoulders are always hit and miss anyway, but we're working hard to increase the mobility there. And the wrists are also, I think, of a knock-on effect from the elbows. So yeah, basically I am probably running at around 65 to 70% of my particularly strength capacity. My fitness hasn't suffered, which is great, but yeah, strength capacity in certain movements affected by what I've got is definitely being effective in a negative way. So I'm hoping being back home, not that I've not been eating well here, but even better, even more focused nutrition. I'm able to cook all my own meals, have a really comfy bed, not having to sleep with the aircon on. I think that's one thing that does affect my sleep as well. It's going to help me recharge, and it's important. It's important because comp season is around the corner, with the first one being on the 8th of August, and I'm actually competing 3 times whilst I'm back in the UK, and I don't want to discredit them by saying they're a warm-up to the All-Out Games in October, but they're definitely in place to help me prepare for the competition which I'm focusing on, which is the individuals at the All-Out Games, because for me it's my first big individuals event. It's in the top category, which makes it even scarier, and I just want to make sure I'm not going in blind and dumb. But we're excited. It's going to be a really, really good time. So those who are questioning what a deload week, or those who might think they know what a deload week is and don't quite know, one, I'm going to highlight, this is something, if you are training consistently, if you're training hard, if you are maybe carrying niggly injuries like me, seeing progress stall, that's only when a deload week should be planned in. If you're someone who does 1 week on, 1 week off, you're very inconsistent, your training's not that intense, then there's really no need for a deload week. But the caveat I'll put on there is 100%, as you get older, 30, 35, 40, these deload weeks, rests, recoveries become super, super important. Otherwise, you are going to get stuck in the mud. You are going to start moving backwards. You're not going to see the progress that you want to see. So what does a deload week entail? Well, it's pretty much, the clue's in the name. You're going to deload the amount of volume you're doing. So first and foremost, for me, from my example, not that I've dropped any workout sessions, but the workout sessions themselves have dropped volume. Instead of maybe having 4 to 6 elements, I'm having 2 to 3 elements. Secondly, the intensity has dropped. So we're not working and pushing the WODs. We're only operating at an RPE of 6 to 7. The overall load that we're carrying in our lifts, we're never going past 60%. And the point being is, for someone like me as well, I need to keep moving. I need to keep my mind fresh. I need to keep my body greased. But we want to do it in a way where we're not getting in the way of recovery, getting in the way of recharging. Because if I go in one day and feel, oh yeah, I feel good, I feel loose, I actually feel strong. Maybe I'll try and, take it beyond 60%. Maybe I'll reach 80, 90%. Then you just completely stopping the deload week. You're getting in the way of what your body needs to do. Even if you feel good, resist that temptation. And the third thing, which is again difficult for people to get their head around, because I'm the same, your food has to stay the same in terms of the volume. Just because you're dropping workload in the gym, you shouldn't be dropping the amount you're eating, because you need that food to recover. It is the fuel, it is the resource that your body needs to fix those issues. So relax, enjoy yourself, give yourself a little bit more time, and see through the deload week in full. Because that is what is going to take you from your good level now, where progress is maybe stalling, to the next level. Imagine feeling that feeling of freshness. No niggles, no injuries. You're bouncing up and down. You have energy like no other. That's what you need to do for yourself. So as I say, recapping on this past 3 months working with Nico has been brilliant. Brilliant. And the things that we've mainly focused on are my snatches. Now, in terms of our progress, there's been no trend in weight, but I would, maybe point towards the fact I do have these niggly injuries in key areas needed to perform in the snatch. The adductors in the catch, the elbows, the wrists, they've all been a little bit sore during the course of time, so it's not like I've been able to push the weight too much anyway. But 2, we don't want to push the weight until the technique is feeling as good as it should be. We want to almost perfect that technique before we start pushing away. And I promise, because I can already sense it, I can already feel, once the technique is consistent, we are going to see the numbers fly. Once these niggles have eradicated, we are going to see these numbers fly. Because I know it myself, I know I'm strong enough. If I'm able to lift what I can lift now at 60-70% capacity with these niggles, hell, I know I can lift a lot more than what my current PB is. And that goes across the board, not just in the snatch. Relatable to that is the clean and jerk. Now the clean, I've always had a decent clean, but maybe relied a little bit too much on my raw strength, pulling power, as opposed to my explosive strength. So that is something in terms of the triple hip extension we've been aiming to, again, perfect the technique, perfect the timing, and generate as much power as possible. But also in the jerk and my foot positioning was maybe never great. This has been stalled. I think for me, this is the only exercise where I've not felt too much progress. And that's not to go with Nico's coaching or what we've been working on. This is just downright to my injuries, particularly in the adductors. Maybe there's a mental blocker for me to really lunge forward because of the issues, but that's what I'm sensing, that's what I'm feeling. And also in the elbows, I just know my body's switching off power to the push, to the overhead push, because of the injuries. I can sense it. It's almost like I have to force push the power button on. But that doesn't mean the time's been wasted, because I have picked up a lot of good cues, not only from Nico, but my good friends in the gym. Marie and Kevin have helped as well, giving me tips, giving me hints. And I know, again, when I come back fresh, fully fit, raring to go, I've banked those tips, I've banked that advice, and they will come to fruition. Again, I expect to see those numbers fly once we get that technique right. Now, the best thing, in my opinion, the most progress I've made has come in the gymnastics. And I won't lie, gymnastics is my favourite part of CrossFit. I love the skill element. I love the way that you are learning how to control your body, learning how to coordinate certain movements, being basically a master of your own body. It's just fantastic. And specifically, we've been working on chest to bar capacities, butterfly chest to bar capacities, toes to bar capacity, and bar muscle up. Again, making the movement more efficient. And I think chest to bar for me is definitely almost there. It's just now about increasing volume. Same with toes to bar, almost there, just about increasing volume now. But definitely the bar muscle up has come a long way. And I still think there's a little bit of a way to go in terms of really smoothing up the movement and the transition from top to bottom. But give me 3 to 6 months on that, and it's going to be bang on. I know it is, because it feels so much better already. Other than that, generally working on fitness, on monostructural work. I feel like I have the rower, running, ski all down really well. And I'm excited to see what I bring into the second half of the year, what I bring into competition season. My only worry, my only anxiety is these niggly injuries, but what can you do? If we start the competition season and I've still got a few issues, I'm not going to spit my dummy out about it. We're just going to show up, give our best, work around them, and that's what it is. So, what would I like to finish on in this episode? Because this was meant to be about my 90-day peak athletic program, but before I give you something that, let's be honest, it's a program that I'm selling as a coach, as a fitness coach, I wanted to give you a little bit of background on me. I wanted to let you know what's going on in my training world. I wanted to let you know how I am performing, the things and challenges that I've had to work around and work with, because you will only work with a coach that you can maybe relate to. And I've always been a believer is you've got to practice what you preach. And that doesn't mean if you're a 5-star athlete, world champion, and you're not really working on your weaknesses, to me, you're not practicing what you preach. You're just, okay, you've worked very hard to get to where you are, but it's going to be difficult for you to coach someone who's struggling with challenges you've never experienced. I know what you've experienced, all the way from before you even start your second peak. A lot of you now are watching this not really knowing what you want to do, not really having a drive, a passion for fitness, maybe for life, because that's how I was. Super low, super numb, felt like my athletic years and achievements were way behind me when I stopped playing football. And that loss of identity hurts a lot, because that's what I always dreamed about. 80% of my thoughts were centered around lifting a trophy, scoring a goal, getting the man of the match performance. And to not have that, and think that I wasn't going to have that ever again for potentially 40, 50, 60 years. What was I supposed to do? I don't play music. Okay, I can cook, but, not on a high level. Gaming, again, that's just for fun. My hobby, passion, interest is fitness, and I'm not a leisure fitness guy. I'm someone who wants to compete with the best, do the best he can. I'm not saying I have to win, I have to be the champion. I just love to be in a room, on a gym floor, in a competition amongst high level athletes, and at least giving them a run for their money. That is my goal. And then we see. I'm not going to come out and be cocky saying I'm going to win this event, I'm going to win that event. It's not my style. Not my style at all. And of course, that doesn't mean I do not put every ounce of effort into the competition, but I don't let it consume me. I don't let it be the definition of who I am. Just because you have a passion for something, it doesn't make it the only thing about you. In fact, it enhances you as a human being. It adds another bow, it adds another category, element, whatever you want to call it, to your genetic makeup. Now I'm talking rubbish, but you understand what I mean, I hope. Let's wrap this episode up. Guys in Chagall, I will be back. I already have my flights booked. Do not miss me too much. Guys and gals in the UK, in Bolton, I will see you very soon. Whoever's around for 5 weeks in the month of August, start September, let me know. It'd be great to meet up. And everyone else who I've met along the way, see you on the competition floor. Peace. So I started working with a one-to-one coach, Nico, head coach at CrossFit Chagall, for my own improvements in CrossFit. I felt I'd reached a level where classes couldn't really take me further than I was. Not what's the opposite of concentrated. I was going to say what's the opposite of diluted. And if I'm being realistic, that's never going to happen in my world. As much as I'd love it to, you might be a great athlete already, but if you've never worked with a coach, and a good coach at that, then I can pretty much guarantee you're leaving things on the table. You have more potential to achieve. Maybe I could do certain movements, but I couldn't do them very efficiently. For example, the bar muscle up. I've been able to do those for maybe 18 months or so, but the way I was doing them prior was very inefficient. The intensity has dropped. So we're not working and pushing the WODs. We're only operating at an RPE of 6 to 7. The overall load that we're carrying in our lifts, we're never going past 60%. So what does a deload week entail? For my own improvements in CrossFit, I felt I'd reached a level where classes couldn't really take me further than I was. And I needed someone really to work with me on an individual basis, design an individual specified program for me that is going to work on my weaknesses and bring them up to where they should be. I started working with a one-to-one coach.